Hey guys, welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles! In the last episode, we had some very interesting things unfold. We have Mr. and Mrs. Garrett in the witness stand, and we cross-examined them, and we figured actually everything out. But then Lord von Zieks came in and said, no, your theory doesn't hold water, so right now we do have a problem. We have to take a test in some form or way, as it seems. And so we're just gonna head in and try to solve the case once and for all. Yes! If the knife fell on the victim from above, there's no way that it could have hit her in the middle of her back. Under normal circumstances, that is. What are you implying? Counsel? There's a piece of evidence in the court record that can explain this inconsistency. That can explain how the knife that fell from above could have pierced the victim's back. We already have the answer. Goodness! Utter madness! Surely this must be the last time. Counsel, present the evidence of which you speak. This is the last inconsistency, the final piece in the puzzle. If I can successfully make sense of this, the truth will be laid bare at least. The evidence that explains how the falling knife became lodged in the victim's back is... Oh, there is something that explains it? Well, I actually have no clue. What might that be? So this... that's weird. So this was in the pipe. This fragment of metal, the tip of the knife, was in the pipe. And we have to explain how this knife was jacked in the back instead of the head. That's weird. How do we do that? So, the knife fell from here, out of the window, down. And it should have hit the head, but it didn't. It stuck in the back. What do we have? That's really weird. Let me have a look at the case file. Victim of green, unconsciously stab wound. It's... So... just falling into the back wouldn't do it anyway because the tip was off anyway, so... Pavement. Gleaned from personal facts? No other signs of injury were observed. Single stab from the large knife. That is really weird. But at the same time, she wasn't holding this book. Could it be that someone just... We haven't had an explanation for this photograph yet. What if we take a look at the book again? So we've talked about this burnt part already. Okay, they just skip it. That means we already talked about that. The warrant can't be... It can't be the anniversary bouquet. That's really weird. It has to be what? It can't be the knife? Because we just presented that, and that doesn't explain anything. The case file doesn't explain it. The receipt doesn't explain it. The map doesn't. The book doesn't, although the book... But if we want to present the book, we should actually present this photograph, I think, because we still haven't explained why she clutches that book. It's not the warrant card, it's not the bouquet, it's not the pipe, it's not the metal. Is it the pipe? No, there's no way the pipe explains anything. Does this? Okay guys, I'm taking a risk here. I'm just going to present the crime scene photograph because this has no explanation yet.
Take that!
This, the fourth book found at the scene. This is the final piece of evidence the defense will present. The burnt book? Is that not Mr. Gerdepp's book? Yes, and to understand its significance, we have to consider how it came to be at the scene in the first place. This photographic print clearly shows the book in question, and the victim holding it in her hand. But as we all know, it was the police constable that put the book between her fingers like that. Quite so, as part of his wholesale transplanting of the crime scene to the opposite side of the road. That's true. However, as part of his testimony, Constable Beat made an extremely enlightening statement on that point. But what made you place that book in the victim's hand? Oh, well, sir, that's because that's how I found it. When we first ran over to the scene, the victim was already holding the book. So, when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand. That's what I meant, by the way. Because I said she's holding the book and we don't know how. I mean, we knew that he did put it in her hand, but still. Anyway, in other words, the victim had already picked the book up of her own volition. And clearly, that must have been before she suffered the knife wound. Ah, now I get it. She buckled down, and then the knife hit her in the back. Well, I should say so. After being attacked with a knife, I don't imagine she'd have been doing much of anything. So the question becomes, why did the victim have that book in her hand? By Jingo! I think I'm beginning to see what might have happened now. Oh dearie me! We know that the book fell from the top floor of the Gerdepp household onto the pavement below. At precisely the moment that the victim was walking past. Yes, at exactly that moment. The young woman was walking along the street in the light fog, when all of a sudden, a book fell right in front of her. The book I threw! Yes, Mrs. Gerdepp. And what do you think the woman did? What would you do if you were walking along? Suddenly a book landed in front of you on the pavement. Well, I really can't imagine it, but I suppose she might have reached down and picked the book up. Yes, that is exactly what the woman in fact did. She picked up the book. Oh heavens! And when the woman reached down to pick the fallen book up, what position would her back have been in? That's right, facing the sky completely and utterly defenseless. Then, in the very next moment, while the woman was still bent over picking up the book, the next object fell from the room above, the jackknife, straight into the middle of her back. And at the same time, walking by chance directly behind Miss Green was the defendant, Mr. Soseki Natsume.
Well, I never...
It appeared to Mr. Natsume that the woman simply collapsed on the floor. In the dark and the fog, he didn't see the knife falling on her from above. And from the other direction, the constable and his wife saw no one but the victim and her apparent attacker. So there never was a real culprit to run from the scene in the first place. No, this was nothing more than a series of unlikely events that culminated in an unfortunate accident. And that is the real truth behind this case. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Garadab?
The very first time you showed me the knife, I had my suspicions. I wondered if perhaps it might have been something like that.
There, old bean.
Poor Mrs. Garadab. Of course, I never meant for anything of the sort to happen, but it was all my fault, wasn't it? I take full responsibility. I let my anger get the better of me. I threw that book, and I threw the knife as well. John dear.
It's all right. I know.
I'm ever so sorry. Truly. I'm sorry.
Lord Van Zeeks, what news of Mrs. Garadab? She's been taken to the infirmary. It would appear that today's events had left her in an especially flustered state. However, I believe she will recover in due course. There is no cause for concern. Yes, unbeknownst to themselves, they caused what could easily have been a terrible tragedy. They shall have to prepare themselves for the consequences to their actions. There is some good news, however, my lord. I have just had word from the hospital where the victim is being treated. Her condition is improving steadily, and the doctor believes she will regain consciousness soon. It's strange. We've been talking about the victim all this time, but we've never once met her.
How wonderful! The woman is out of danger, it seems.
Yes, that is good news. So, Mr. Soseki Natsume.
Yes?
On behalf of my fellow countrymen, I would like to take this opportunity to beg your pardon, sir. You came from your distant eastern homeland to study our great British culture, and have been repaid with immeasurable unkindness. Please accept our heartfelt apologies.
No, it is me who should be begging your pardon.
Oh no, Mr. Natsume.
That evening, when the young woman just collapsed on the pavement before my eyes, I jumped to the wrong conclusion again, in my confusion.
What conclusion, sir?
I was sure that the woman was dead.
Yes, Constable Beat said the same thing, didn't he? He thought she had been killed too.
I suppose she must have looked completely lifeless.
It's been about a year since I arrived in Great Britain now, but I still can't get used to life here. I can't relax. I'm sure there are evil spirits lurking in the fog, like they're haunting me.
Poor Soseki-san. His imagination really has got the better of him.
Yes, poor man. So, when it happened, I thought the young woman had been taken by the fog spirits. I should never have dropped my books like that and run away. I should have called for help, for a doctor, for the police. Instead, I've managed to create a rift in the relationship of trust between our two empires. And for that, I am truly sorry.
One could indeed say that some sort of mischievous spirit has been at work here, I think. One that created a chain of unfortunate mishaps. We were befooled by the spirit and led to false conclusions. But thanks to Lord Van Zieks and our young lawyer here from the east, the chain has now been broken and the spirit exorcised. I heartily commend you both.
Oh,
Now then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury,
yes, my lord.
in concluding this trial, I must ask one last time for your decisions regarding the defendant's culpability. Are you ready to present your findings to the court?
As the foreman of this jury, I can assure you we've reached a fair and just conclusion.
I do declare the truth can be extremely cruel at times.
Well, I didn't suspect the woman next to me, that's for sure.
Sitting in for the old bean whilst she's out of action, but I know what her decision would be. Does this mean I finally be able to get out of here and start work? Well, it's about time!
I say I'll have a corker of a story to tell to the grandchildren when I get home, won't I?
Very well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I hereby demand your final decisions. Mr. Foreman,
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
very well, Mr. Soseki Natsume, I hereby pronounce you We went through a lot to get this not guilty verdict. And finally, Mr. Natsume,
Oh, yes, Lord Sir!
you are now a free man once more. It is my hope that you will continue to further your education in British culture. And may you never again be brought before me.
Oh, yes, sir, of course. All my life, I swear I'll never set foot in a courtroom again. Transported to tears.
Thank you, counsels. Court is adjourned. February 20th, 3:17 p.m. The Old Bailey, defendant's antechamber.
Oh, locum.
Wait, you mean me?
Of course. Is there another locum here?
Is there even one?
Compared to the original locum student, Mr. Narode, Esquire, your name has become rather short, hasn't it?
What's wrong with using my actual name?
Oh, at last I'm free. I'm free.
Joyful, joyous, jubilant jubilation!
Heady, hearty, happiness, hurrah!
Oh, I am pleased. Mr. Natsume is delighted.
Would it be so hard just to say that then?
Locum, you did it. You saved me from the brink.
Well, what happened to the poor woman was in no way your fault after all. I'm just glad everyone can see that now.
No, 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 not that! Lovely, loyal, locum lawyer!
Yes?
I mean, as I said before, I have just never got used to life here in Great Britain. Every time I look over my shoulder, I see foreigners. I see towering brick buildings. And from high up windows, I see them looking down on me, laughing. Look at that little hunchback.
Oh dear, I'm sure it's all in your head, Mr. Natsume.
But today, you locum lawyer gave my gloom the boot. You stood firm behind the baronial bench before all those babbling British. You battled to the bitter end, laying bare the baffling truth. And when I beheld the blinding fireworks among the beams of the Bailey's roof, I bellowed, "Behold the best barrister ever born!"
Well, that's very flattering, and we're very pleased for you.
This has given me a wonderful anecdote to recount to my old friends back in Japan.
An anecdote? Is that what's to become of all my hard work?
Oh, there you are, my dear fellows. I apologize for keeping you waiting. I rose late this morning.
Oh, Mr. Sholmes, what a pleasure to see you.
Ah, I see I am here not a moment too soon. A disaster has been averted, I'm glad to say.
Uh-huh.
The trial shall begin presently, Mr. Naruto, and I wish you the very best of luck.
It's just finished.
What? No! Then my haste was in vain. Ah, it's you, Herlock Sholmes. Oh, have we met, sir?
This is Mr. Natsume, the man you had arrested, Mr. Sholmes.
Ah, I see. I failed to recognize you at first. Our previous encounters have taken place in the gloom, either of your bleak lodgings or the prison cell. I simply couldn't place the curious face in the light.
Charming.
This is all your fault, Herlock Sholmes. You're the reason I had to go through this terrible ordeal. I'm going to give you a piece of my mind. My apologies, sir, but I assure you I have placed you now. You're the fellow who abandoned the poor young lady and ran off, are you not?
Oh,
Had you been taken to the hospital more urgently, I feel perhaps she would have regained consciousness by now.
oh,
But it was unavoidable, I'm sure. We are but human after all. Anyone would have been shaken by such an experience.
I do feel very badly about how I behaved.
Well, never mind. Now then, what was it that you wanted me to say to me, sir?
Nothing.
Priceless! Oh, I'm sorry, really, but that was quite priceless.
Poor Soseki-san.
Still, on the bright side, you've had an extremely entertaining experience without paying a penny. And it would seem you were not even found guilty.
But there is no bright side.
Whatever do you mean, Mr. Natsume?
Even after this, I'm still cursed by the spirits. And now by the Reaper! Lord Van Zeeks. I haven't forgotten, you know, what facing that man in court means. Even if you're not found guilty, you're still doomed!
It will be all right, Mr. Natsume. Huh? If the Reaper appears trying to make trouble, I will protect you. Hiya! With a perfectly executed Susato takedown.
Much as I like being turned on my head, a bit of warning might be nice next time, Mr. Sato. So, Mr. Natsume, what do you intend to do now? You mentioned something about recounting your experiences to your friends back in Japan.
Yes, I intend to return to my homeland soon.
Ah,
It has already been a year since I arrived here in Great Britain. I've visited universities, libraries, bookshops. I've been honored with the tutelage of professors. I've learned so much about the wealth of literature here in the city it has shaped. And I've come to realize that it is my calling to sail home and tell my fellow countrymen about it.
that's very touching, Mr. Natsume.
Or in perhaps less wheeled terms, you wish to withdraw halfway around the world to escape the terror of the Reaper's curse.
That's not it at all!
The more I learn of the literature, the more these strange feelings claws at my insides. I feel compelled to return to my roots and attempt to pen a work of my own.
Oh, I see. A work of literature by Soseki-san could be an interesting read. If you know if Soseki Natsume is actually a writer from Japan, an author that actually wrote something about a journey to Great Britain, please put it in the comments. I'm really eager to know. I'm going to wait a few days, and if no one puts it down there, I'm going to see for myself if that's the case. But I hope someone will just answer my question. I'm really curious about that.
And what about Mr. Sato and yourself, Mr. Naruhodo?
Sorry, what about us?
Will you return to Japan alongside your mustached compatriot?
Why would we?
A week has not yet passed since we arrived in London. And only now does it feel as though we have finally found our feet.
And you are accommodated in a hotel at present, are you not?
That's right, but we need to find lodgings before it bankrupts us.
I've calculated we can only afford another 10 nights before our entire budget is exhausted.
Well then, you could take my lodgings.
Oh, the windowless room?
Oh, but what it lacks is windows. It more than makes up for with a floor and a ceiling and walls.
Great.
And of course, I'd be happy to leave behind the cursed evil spirit.
Oh my, an evil spirit?
Oh yes. It tries to suffocate you while you sleep. It's an infallible wake-up call.
We'll think about it if that's alright.
Perhaps I can offer a more welcome alternative. Would you consider taking lodgings with me?
Really?
Well, a vacancy has conveniently presented itself. Though it is up in the attic, I might add.
Are you sure it isn't just a storage loft?
I spoke with the landlady this very morning on the matter of price, and Iris is cleaning the room as we speak. You must come at once. I presume you have no luggage to speak of.
Oh, this is simply wonderful! What an honor to be invited to taking lodgings in the Great Detective's office. This is attic. I'm too overcome for words.
So suggesting we look elsewhere is out then?
Then it's settled. Iris will prepare a welcome dinner this evening. And you must come too, Mr. Natsume. I insist.
I don't know what to say, but thank you. And yes.
Wonderful! Then I'll go and complete the paperwork for a formal release, Mr. Natsume. It shan't take long.
Somebody's happy.
Locum, I knew that you wouldn't let me down. I'm truly delighted to have met you here in London.
Likewise, Mr. Natsume. It's been a privilege meeting you too. It's a shame that we're going to have to say goodbye so soon.
Well, I've come to realize that I belong in Japan. But Locum, we'll meet again one day.
Yes, I'm sure. And hopefully by then, I'll be a successful lawyer.
Hopefully by then I'll be a successful author.
Well, my dear fellow, our carriage appears to have arrived. Shall we go, Mr. Naruhodo?
Yes, Mr. Sholmes?
I've little doubt Mr. Natsume will be released in time for dinner this evening.
And so, with Soseki-san's innocence successfully established, we rode with Mr. Sholmes to what was to become our new home, 221 Baker Street. B. Baker Street. 20th February, 4:41 p.m., the attic room. So this
Is to be our new office, yes.
our office? I rather like the sound of that.
Me too. It's simply wonderful, isn't it?
I hope you can see this, Kazuma. It's only a small step. But I'd like to think we're getting a little closer to your dream now.
So, my dear fellows, do you like the place?
Ah, Mr. Sholmes. Yes, thank you so much.
It's a delightful room, Mr. Sholmes. I simply adore it.
Good, I'm pleased to hear it. Iris and I are delighted to welcome you.
I hope everyone's hungry. It's nearly time for dinner. We'll eat as soon as Mr. Natsume arrives. We have a lot to celebrate. Iris, you must let me help you. All right then, Susie. You can be in charge of the salad. Splendid.
So, Mr. Naruhodo, how does it feel to have your own office in the capital? It's very exciting, actually. I can't help wondering what adventures await us.
Those were precisely my sentiments when I first established my office at these premises. Until I discovered the dark truth about the city of London, that is.
Sorry?
London is a glorious place, full of wonder, opportunity, prosperity, and mirth. But the brightest of lights cast the darkest of shadows.
Shadows? What do you mean?
Well, I believe you're well aware of the murkiness that lies behind London's facade already. So once again, Mr. Naruhodo, welcome to London.
Okay. Of course, at the time, I had no idea of the significance of those words Mr. Sholmes so casually spoke. But it wasn't long before my turn came to lift the facade and see the true depth of the murk that lay behind it. Well, that was indeed a case, people. That was indeed a case. And we have a achievement landed in London. I don't know if you can see, but... Okay, so this case was very overwhelming and really cool. Was really well done, I think. But since we have to save our current progress, I'd say thanks so much for watching for this episode of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. If you want to see what the next case has in stock for us, you'll have to tune in next time.